Sheldon Cooper has slept with a co-worker more than once. One of those times was at a Star Trek convention. He has also told his best friend the exact number of naked women he has seen in his life. 6. He says it the way he would report a lab result. None of that sounds like the Sheldon Cooper from 279 episodes of The Big Bang Theory, the one who needed ears just to hold a girlfriend's hand. That's because it isn't. Not really. Because, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Sheldon Cooper from a different pilot. The one CBS actually filmed, actually tested in front of a live audience, and then buried so quietly that most fans have never seen a frame of it.
Sorry, I got distracted.
Really? How exactly do you get distracted making a sperm deposit?
But here is the part that should really bother you. The woman standing in Penny's spot in this version isn't sweet. She is not the girl next door. She is sharp, exhausted by men, and treats Leonard and Sheldon like a problem she is stuck with. And she was always supposed to be the heart of the show. CBS rejected this pilot outright in 2006. By every normal rule of network television, that's the end. Rejected pilots don't get a second try. They get quietly filled away while everyone moves on to the next pitch. This one didn't die. And the reason it didn't is one of the strangest rescue jobs in sitcom history. Let's start with the pitch. Start in 2006, Chuck Lorre and Bill Prady were not unknowns walking into the pitch meeting. Lorre had already co-created Dharma and Greg and was running 2.5 Men, which at the time was one of the highest rated comedies on television. When someone with that track record brings CBS a new idea, the network listens. The idea itself was still a gamble, a sitcom built around two physicists where their intelligence is the point instead of the punchline, isn't an obvious sell to a mass broadcast audience. CBS said yes anyway, almost immediately, and a pilot got the green light. And exactly two things from that original pitch made it into the show you have actually seen. Johnny Galecki as Leonard and Jim Parsons as Sheldon. Everything else, every other character, the apartment, the tone, even the theme song got thrown out and rebuilt from the ground up.
Our babies will be smart and beautiful.
Pilot opens almost exactly like the one you know. Leonard and Sheldon at a high IQ sperm bank, except here, Sheldon's already finished. And he's arguing with the receptionist about getting paid in cash instead of a check. Walking home, they find a woman crying on a curb. Her boyfriend just told her he's married. Whatever's going on with her family, it's bad enough that going home isn't an option either. Leonard, over Sheldon's objections, invites her to stay with them for a few days. Her name is Katie, played by an actress named Amanda Walsh. On the page, she is built to be hard-edged, a little dangerous, sarcastic by default. She mocks the guys constantly and makes it clear she's putting up with them, not choosing them. At one point, she comes home late and drunk, waking Leonard up by smashing a lamp. When he gently points out that her problems are mostly her own doing, she twists it into an insult and storms out, only to come back home later because, in her words, living there is her only rent-free option. Even the scenes meant to be charming, like the three of them going out dancing, play more like Katie tolerating two embarrassing kids. Katie was always meant to become Penny. She just got built with the dial turned all the way to mean. But you will be surprised to know that Katie isn't even the only person living in this version of the apartment that the show has spent almost 20 years pretending never existed. Because then comes the ghost character. Her name was Gilda, a fellow physicist, a close friend of Leonard and Sheldon's, and here is the detail again. She and Sheldon have a history. The script implies they have slept together more than once, including at the Star Trek convention. It's not an isolated movement either. Back at the sperm bank, this version of Sheldon gets visibly worked up over a magazine and launches into an entire unprompted theory about which body types makes the best biological mates. It's almost impossible to picture the Sheldon Cooper you actually know having that conversation. The one who for 12 seasons treated romance like a logic problem. he would rather avoid solving altogether. Story continues from there. Gilda shows up at the apartment while Katie is in the shower. She assumes the worst and spends the rest of the episode jealous and hostile. Also, there is no Howard, there is no Raj, it's just Leonard, Sheldon, Katie, and Gilda. 4 people instead of 5. According to nearly everyone who has seen it, the chemistry simply isn't there. The show feels like it's missing 2 people before you even know who they are supposed to be. Gilda didn't vanish completely, by the way. Pieces of her got folded into a later recurring character, Leslie Winkle, Leonard's prickly on and off girlfriend, played by Sarah Gilbert. A small fragment of this disaster pilot is technically still canon, and it's a strange footnote in another way too. The show wouldn't get another regular female scientist for years, not until Amy Farrah Fowler showed up several seasons later. Gilda's whole role, a brilliant woman who belongs in this friend group as an equal, basically sat empty in the meantime. None of this, not Katie, not Gilda, not a Sheldon with a dating history, is actually why the show almost died. The real reason is what happened when CBS put real people in a room and watched their faces. The test screening. This is the part that explains everything else. CBS ran dial testing. Real viewers watching the pilot, turning a dial up when they liked something and down when they didn't. It's a blunt tool by design. It produces a second-by-second graph of audience enjoyment, with no room for a polite focus group answer to soften the verdict. According to Bill Prady, the reaction in that room was immediate. The audience hated Katie. That part the writers expected. What they didn't expect was what happened every time Katie was mean to Leonard or Sheldon. The audience didn't laugh. They got protective.
Using the Schrodinger equation.
The Howard does.
Really?
Prady has described it as the room defending the 2 guys the way you would defend a kid being picked up on. Chuck Lorre has said they hadn't fully realized until that exact moment that audiences saw Leonard and Sheldon as almost childlike. Brilliant, sure, but innocent enough that Katie's cruelty read less like comedy and more like a bullying. That's the entire flaw of the original pilot. Diagnosed in a single test screening. Lorre has since said the actress was terrific and the character was the problem, and that mistake was entirely on the writers. CBS's own verdict was that the show was too mean and missing the warmth it would need to survive. It's a strange kind of a compliment. If you think about it, the writing was good enough and Galecki and Parsons were likable enough that a room full of strangers spontaneously decided these 2 fictional men needed protecting. The show hadn't earned warmth yet, but it had already earned the audience's instinct to care. By every normal rule of business, this is where it ends. Except, CBS did something that even now almost never happens. The second chance. Instead of killing the project, CBS's top entertainment executive, Nina Tesler, made a call that's genuinely rare in network television. Keep what worked, which was Leonard and Sheldon, and rebuild everything else from scratch. This isn't a common move. The clearest comparison most TV historians point to happened decades earlier when NBC rejected the original Star Trek pilot, the one with Jeffrey Hunter as the captain, and let Gene Roddenberry shoot a second pilot almost from scratch, this time with William Shatner in the lead. Spock survived the rebuild, the captain didn't. Sound familiar, right? That's the company this show is in. A small club of now iconic series that only exists because a network broke its own rules and let a creator fail forward instead of just failing. And when Lorre and Prady rebuilt it, they didn't make small adjustments. They tore the whole thing down. And that's the rebuild. Katie and Gilda were both written out completely. And in their place, Penny. Designed from the ground up to be everything Katie wasn't. Warm, genuinely charmed by these 2 strange men instead of irritated by them, Howard and Raj were added to round out the friend group. That addition mattered more than it looks like on paper. Instead of concentrating on all the social awkwardness into 2 characters, the writers now had 4 distinct flavors of it to work with. Howard's overconfident creepiness, Raj's complete inability to speak to women without a drink in him. It quietly set up everything the show would build over the next decade. including Bernadette, introduced as Penny's co-worker before becoming Howard's girlfriend, and later Amy Farrah Fowler, who enters almost as a prank and ends up central to the entire show. The dark, cheap-looking apartment set got rebuilt into the bright one you actually remember. CBS even brought in James Burrows, the director behind Cheers and the Friends pilot, to direct the reshoot. Though he wouldn't stick around for the rest of the series, even the theme song changed. Out went a licensed Thomas Dolby track, in came an original song written for the show by Bare Naked Ladies. And here is the detail that should genuinely get you. Kaylee Cuoco actually auditioned for the role of Katie in the very first round before any of this happened. She didn't get it. The casting team felt she read as too young. A year later, they brought her back in for the rebuilt role of Penny. This time, she got it. The actress who would go on to define one of the most beloved characters of her generation was originally turned down for being too young to play a bitter cosmetics clerk. And the new pilot worked, for a reason Chuck Lorre himself can explain in one sentence. Lorre has described the new pilot's plot like this. A guy meets an incredible woman. He is obsessed. She gives him a small task. He fails at it completely, and then they all just eat dinner together. That's it. That's the entire engine of a show that ran for 12 entire seasons. Not edge, not cleverness, a nice guy, a girl he likes, a small failure, and a dinner with friends. The first pilot tried to be sharp and cynical. The second one just tried to be warm. Warm is what worked. Compare that to the version test audience rejected, where the emotional center was a woman who didn't even like the people she was living with. There was no will they, won't they to root for and no warmth to come back to. Just two men getting mocked in their own apartment by someone who saw them as a free place to crash. You can build a show around being clever without being likable. You almost never get a second season doing both at once. The retooled pilot finally aired on September 24, 2007, and it did not explode out of the gate. Season 1 averaged just over 8 million viewers and ranked 68th for the entire television season. Even after surviving 2 near deaths, this show was still a slow burn. Part of that wasn't even the show's fault. A Hollywood writers' strike hit that same season hard and buried most of the other new shows that launched alongside it. The Big Bang Theory is one of the only ones that survived it. But it kept climbing. By season 4, it was the highest rated comedy on American television. It held the #1 spot for most of the next 8 years, and during its peak run, season 6 through 11, it averaged more than 18 million viewers a week. Reruns did almost as much work as new episodes. By the early 2010s, syndicated airings of the show were so dominant that it knocked Judge Judy off the top of syndication ratings, a chart she would own for years. Jim Parsons alone would go on to win 4 Emmys playing a Sheldon who by then had nothing in common with the one CBS rejected back in 2006. When the finale aired in 2019, nearly 18 million people watched two physicists and their friends say goodbye after 279 episodes. That number beat the series finale of Game of Thrones, the single biggest television event of that entire year, by almost 9 million viewers. And the character who, in that buried 2006 pilot, was bragging about his dating history at a Star Trek convention, he got his own prequel spin-off about his innocent Texas childhood. Narrated by an adult Sheldon looking back on all of it. It ran for 7 seasons of its own. So here is what actually changed everything. Not a clever line, not a casting fluke. A room full of strangers watching two physicists getting mocked by a woman named Katie and instinctively defending them instead of laughing. That single reaction told Lorre and Prady everything that was wrong with their own show. And instead of quietly moving on to the next pitch, CBS let them prove they could fix it. Most pilots don't get that chance. This one did. And 12 years, 279 episodes, and one Texas childhood prequel later, it's hard to imagine the show ever existing any other way. If you like this one, there are more, one decision away from never existing stories where this came from. I'll see you in the next video. And welcome to my sitcom world.